Okay, so today we are talking about the power of the voice, and I cannot tell you how powerful your voice can be. It is like a musical instrument. It has a range of tones and sort of inferences. Is that the word I'm looking for? It creates emotion. It gives information in a way that you're able to take it in. It can turn people off. It can turn people on. It is so powerful, and yet so many of us as speakers forget this. And I watch great speakers with amazing information who just need to understand how to use the voice in order to make that speech that's great into awesome, into really powerful stuff. Because the people who are listening to us, their brains are going to react to the way we speak, and the emotion we want to evoke in people, and they'll take it in. And if you can strengthen the way you impart that knowledge and use your voice, the greater the impact is going to be. So let's start with some of the basic stuff that people forget. Pausing. I know that if you're terrified of speaking in public, the thought of standing on a stage and actually not saying anything is nerve-wracking. I promise you, it is to anybody. And that time you're pausing will always seem a lot longer than it is. But the power of the pause means that people can really take in what you've just said. So you use it to emphasize a point, to get across what you're trying to say. So you don't use it all the time. You use it effectively, understanding where that pause should go. The other thing we don't use is the range of our voice. We can talk really low, really intimate, really let people hear and understand what we mean. There is an authority in a deeper voice. And then we can use the higher voice when we really, really want to get to somebody and slam them with the information. Have you ever listened to somebody whose voice is always on a high trill? I call it the little girl voice, and I don't mean that any disrespect to anybody, but it is like little girl voice, and it's actually quite hard for people to take it seriously. And yes, that's unfair. I'm sorry, it's totally unfair, but it is the fact. And if that little girl voice doesn't fit the image of the person, it's very, very difficult for our brains to marry the two. And I've listened to some burly men with quite high squeaky voices, and all I kept thinking all the way through the presentation was, why is that happening? No, I don't get that. So my brain was busily trying to put the two together, and I missed a lot of what was said because of the confusion. Again, not fair, but this isn't about fair. This is about the reality of how our voices work for us. Now, when you have a conversation with someone you are really, really close to, intimately involved with, best friends, all of that, and you get into a heated discussion, your voice is going to go up and down and loud and soft and all of those things that happen to build a rock sort of foundation under the words you're saying. So your voice has layers. You know, you have the layer of the language, you have the layer of just the tone of the voice, you have a layer of the variation in that tone, and you have a variation in the speed you use. So for some sentences, you might want to work really quickly and get that information out. It's not as important, but it's setting up a scene to the point where you need to slow it down. Slow it down again and really emphasize a point. Now, this is particularly important if you're someone who's going to do a demonstration on stage. So it's sort of half speech, half demonstration, because you have to be able to step out of the narrative bit, the narration of the presentation, and step into the demonstrator bit where you want people to follow. And if it's a therapy thing and you want people to sit silently and breathe, you have to go into your coaching mode. Or if you're demonstrating a product, it'll be the other way around. So you start off, quite calm, and you're going to show them how this works. And if you're ever at one of these country fairs and you see people demonstrating in like rugby, things like that, the minute they get into demonstration mode, they're hammering you with information, and it's high volume and it's high energy, and they're whacking it at you. But there is a difference between this is me just talking, and then this is me doing a demonstration. And the thing about your voice is it will connect with your audience's inner voice. So if you're not passionate and powerful enough about the presentation you're doing, it's going to come across and it will be received in the same way, because we will hear it like that, and our inner voice will mimic the way you're giving it to us. So we won't feel very passionate about your presentation or see its power. So you have to be able to rise to the occasion. And it may be that you pick up a presentation and it goes out week after week after week after week. You may be doing, I know a lot of people when I worked in the voluntary sector, the council would have some sort of big sort of thing they had to do with residents, and they'd go round and round and round to all the various groups, the same presentation. And honestly, you could tell by the end, if you were lucky, halfway round, it began to dip off and turn and become boring. Or 9 times out of 10, it started boring. Because the people who were doing the presentation hadn't necessarily put it together. They hadn't thought about how people were going to receive that information. And they weren't aware of the atmosphere they were creating within the presentation. You see, you have to be able to hear what isn't being said. So you have to ensure that your voice has that power and that emotion to really, really get across to people, to have pitch, to have tone, to be really, really fast if you need it to be, and to be able to slow it down when you need it to be slower and important and people need to get it. Emphasizing words you really, really want people to get. And the power and magic of the pause. There is nothing nicer than someone who can do a good pause. And that's a challenge for you. And when you're doing these talks and these speeches and your elevator pitches, give it time for a pause. Often or not, your elevator pitch, you're trying to get everything into 60 seconds and you talk really, really fast, you chuck it all in, there's no pausing, there's nothing, and we're all trying to take a breath for you. If that's happening, go back to your elevator pitch and take the things out that don't need to be said and make it powerful. Make your voice powerful. And that isn't about being loud. I'm loud. It's not about whether, you can reach the back of a room or not, although that does help. Some of the quietest, most shy people, I know, the introverts, can really put power in their voice in the way they use it. So they don't have to be, loud and bouncing around. And it's all in the voice. That's what matters. And this is so important when you're doing podcasts. and video to a certain degree, but definitely podcast, because that's all they've got. They haven't even got the body language or the eye line or any of that. So to do a really successful podcast, you have to be able to use your voice. I'm not saying it's easy. I have been trained for years in how to use my voice. I train other people in how to use their voice, and it's no different to being taught how to play an instrument. And actually, once you get it, you get it. It all suddenly makes sense. And it is about, what words do I emphasize? Where do I want my pauses? Where do I want people to really get what I'm saying? And when am I just sort of moving on, segueing into the next bit, and I'm just keeping people with me? If you've got jokes, you have to have a pause. It's called timing. Watch any comic. It's all about the timing, that you just drop that last line in and give people time to get it. That's what I really want to hammer home to you all today, is that it doesn't matter whether you're doing your elevator pitch, your presentation, you're doing a workshop, you're a keynote speaker at a huge conference. You have to use your voice like an instrument in order to get the information across, in order to people to engage with you, for people to hear you, for people to join you in the same emotional state that you are in. That's your job. I hope that helps. If you want any more, you know where to find me. And there'll be another one next week, but I can't remember which one it is. So hopefully you'll listen to this. It's a nice short one, and you'll get to grips and really think about how you are using your voice. And if you want any more from me, you just shout and we'll see what we can do. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you all again on Monday. Bye.